Hello, beautiful people. It seems our society has come to a point in time in which we need to start redefining our way of life, our morals and values. Words, as crazy as it feels for some of us, some words have taken on all new meaning, as others have lost their meaning. Right and wrong. What's tolerated as the norm? What shouldn't be tolerated? Hey, serious question. Is joking around seriously considered a bad thing now? I love joking around. Some people are trying to force the rest of us to comply with a new standard of thinking. But what if the new standard just doesn't make sense? Is that just because it flips how we've always thought about gender identification, sex, and those type of things completely on its back? What if it really doesn't make sense, though? More discussion is required. What if we haven't even had discussions? It almost feels like some people are forcing the change, forcing people to see things their way, forcing people to change how they communicate with others, how they view others. If you're one of the confused, you're not alone. Personally, I'm really confused, and I'm trying my hardest not to form strong opinions and feelings towards these changes and just listen, observe, and see where this goes. But eventually, I will have questions. Will we have a chance to ask questions? What if they say no, we cannot ask questions? Who's actually making these decisions, and why do they get to have the moral authority while the rest of us have to get in line? That's not democracy, and the very same people say these changes are for democracy, to save it. But in a democracy, the leaders do what the people want, and the people get to ask questions. So part of the issue here is these changes are not being brought about in a democratic way. Remember, Socrates was killed for basically asking too many questions. Mental health issues are on the rise at the same time, not making matters any better. How do we understand these changes so many of us are struggling to comprehend when we're just trying to figure out our own lives? I understand mental health very well, being someone who deals with their own issues of extreme anxiety that can trigger OCD. I've also experienced a really strong stretch of depression in my life. I have chronic issues with my eyes to top that all off. I've spent a lot of time working out, eating healthy, reading, resting, meditating. It all started with me deciding to do one thing every week. I started with just making my bed every morning. But you know what? Everything I did helped, but the one thing that made the most difference for me was simply just being honest with myself. Welcome to the JRooneyShow. If you're new, buckle up. Today we address some topics I haven't addressed yet and that I'm still sorting out all this different stuff in my mind as well. So let's keep talking about these issues that we're about to address today, and let's see what kind of conclusions we can all come to together. This is nothing new. You've heard the name Lia Thomas. You know what's going on with Disney and how they're on the forefront of the LGBTQ rights. And Denver leads by example, trying a new way to police, which is awesome. I can't wait to get to that story at the end. But our first story, of course, is about Russia or related to Russia. And I can't help thinking all the time, how has this war not been wrapped up already? It's been over a month. Is the Ukraine resistance really that strong? It sounds like their ground forces have been putting up quite a fight. It's a little hard to believe, but good for them. I feel for them. War is wrong, and they shouldn't have their lives upended because of a madman. Just because I don't want America getting involved doesn't mean I'm not rooting for Ukraine. I noticed something that was extremely disappointing last week, and that the Russian-Ukraine position has become a virtual signal. You've probably heard me mention with our more progressive Americans, it's always something, right? They're so angry. In my opinion, they're always angry with themselves, but they project their anger onto others, and they need a way to justify it. So they attack people like Donald Trump, a president who is like, they attack Donald Trump like a president has never been attacked before. Sorry. And then the next thing was Black Lives Matter. Then it was the vaccines. Then it was the vaccine mandates. And now those who have been pushing so hard on all those things are getting upset with those of us who don't want to go to war. I'm here to tell you, if you don't think America going to war is a good idea, that is okay. Whether you're right or wrong, you're entitled to your opinion, and you should not be attacked for it. You should not be labeled for it. This week, I read posts on a social media site, and this guy basically said if he hadn't spent the last 30 years of his life destroying his body, he'd hop on a plane right now and join the fight. And do you remember an episode I did On the recent Mark Zuckerberg interview, I talked about people compulsively posting about politics literally every 10 minutes. This guy is one of them. Go look up that episode if you're not familiar with it so you know what I'm talking about. All those trigger words I just mentioned, Trump, Black Lives Matter, vaccine mandates, and now the anti-war people. This guy has been attacking all of them relentlessly for all these years now. This post was the saddest attempt at a virtual signal I have ever seen. This doesn't make this guy better than you and I. He can also feel and say whatever he wants, but if you're like this, I would encourage you to recognize this behavior is not healthy at all. On top of the political posts, this same gentleman is always posting pictures of him drinking and eating bar food. And you know, I believe poor diets and lifestyle lead to poor mental health. I talk about this constantly on this show. I too have mental health. We cannot let the challenges of our time destroy our common sense, the ability to recognize when we've gone too far and pull yourself back. We should all work on diplomacy and be more diplomatic. War is not something to use as a virtual signal. Man, this really annoyed me when I saw this post. This is shaking up the world as we know it. While that's going on, here in America, we're going through societal issues, a societal conundrum, if you will. America is resilient. Don't forget, we went through the civil rights movement while in Vietnam, so we can get through these times too, and we will. Our country has progressed a lot. When I was a child, you wouldn't dare come out as being gay. Then we had Ellen announce to the world that she was gay and changed everything. Fast forward to 2022, and we have parents literally trying to explain to their kids that just because they think another kid is good looking, it doesn't mean they're gay, and it might just mean that that kid is good looking. People are going through hormone replacement therapies because they feel like and identify with the opposite gender. We've had a black president and other black leaders, educators, doctors, prominent roles, Supreme Court. Do we have a lot of progress to make? Of course we do. But to say we haven't progressed and things are as bad as they once were does not feel genuine to me. There's a lot of stories I haven't touched yet on the JRooneyShow for one reason or another. I thought I would give some perspective first. One of those stories is Lia Thomas. It's being talked about everywhere. How could you miss it? But if for some reason you don't know, Leah Thomas was a biological male and went through hormone treatment to become a woman. Leah competed in college men's swimming before transitioning to a woman. She now competes in women's swimming and is winning by a lot. I promote discussion and debate when we disagree or on subject matters with this type of complexity because I think we need more time to take all this in, and I know I do myself, and I have a feeling most of you do too. I'm not trying to give you advice. I'm definitely still learning or in that learning phase and trying to get people to start talking more about it. People like you and I, the poor to average Americans, we have a say too, don't forget. I just want to be better informed before really going into how I feel about this at the moment. The only people that seem to be really upset by Leah Thomas are non-swimmers, so if women swimmers don't care, why should I? I know of one who did say something, but most seem to support this as far as I can tell. We don't know who said anything, or at least I couldn't find a name, but the New York Post, and I get it, it's the New York Post. The New York Post did claim a teammate has said they're all uncomfortable in the locker room with Leah. She still has her genitals, and sometimes they're out, per the New York Post article. Leah has also been open about dating other women, so there's a lot there. You feel me? So what if they do have a problem with it? I understand censorship, and it's possible they're afraid to speak out. Instilling fear in people is an attempt to stifle in silence, so when people look around and they see others saying, abide by this philosophy or else, most people tend to shut up. I believe you should be able to do what you want with your body. If you want to take hormone treatments and change your sex, go for it. Who the hell am I to stop you? Every time I find myself judging someone else, I feel like I'm letting myself down. I even felt bad about using this guy just previously in the show, but it was a perfect example of a point I've been trying to make, and this guy just hit it on its head. It's always one thing and then another and then another. Let go of your anger. And if you're that angry, then deal with it internally. Stop projecting it onto other people and stop justifying it like, oh, this person's bad. I'm going to take all this anger inside me and project it on you because now you're the bad person. I'm not bad. You're bad. So then, Leah wants to compete in sports where physicality, strength, endurance, size all plays a role. Some people have come out and said inclusion is more important than fairness. And I believe that's what ESPN is even saying. They are a part of Disney, who we'll get to later. But an honest question then, does inclusion mean the end of women's sports as we know? In other words, women will no longer just be competing against women. Did you hear what Caitlyn Jenner said about this? Go look it up. I believe this is where a lot of us get confused. I've been saying this for a couple years now. Things like inclusion over fairness will blow up. It does not make sense. Ultimately, people will want a fair playing field. But you know what? I could very well be wrong. It has not blown up yet. Thus, I'm still observing and processing. I know how it makes me feel and I know what I think. But what I don't know, if that's the right way to think about the situation. Could there be more to learn out there? Probably. When is there not? So that's why we need to talk more. I'm afraid people give in to things too much in life. The fight is too big a risk, so they go along even though they don't agree. So I don't get into this much because I'm still figuring all this out myself. But we should definitely be talking about it and talking more about it and not let the media dictate these conversations and drive them in certain directions. Make up your own mind. As evident by the Babylon Bee situation and Rachel Levine, we're a long ways apart still. Babylon Bee, who I honestly don't know much about, other than I did listen to a podcast of theirs once when they had Elon Musk on, and they recently just called Rachel Levine Man of the Year. Twitter said Babylon Bee got suspended for violating rules against hateful conduct. Well, to be honest, I disagreed with Twitter's action. I read their hateful conduct policy, and this did not break the rule. Rachel Levine, as far as I can tell, is a biological man who identifies as a woman, not to mention this was just meant to be funny. So you don't find it funny. Well, guess what? Others do. Are you saying your morals should be valued higher than theirs? Everyone gets poked fun of at some point in their life, and when you're as successful as Rachel Levine, it kind of comes with the territory. This is one of those societal norms that people are trying to change and say this is unacceptable because it makes trans people feel bad. Well, quick reminder, I'm a 5'7" bald guy who happens to be white, which is now a bad thing, and I don't have a degree, and here in 2022, nor have I accumulated a lot of resources. So think about that. Think about a woman's selection process. I am shit on all the time, mostly by women, and coming up later, I'm going to share a story of a woman who was literally staring at me at the grocery store and basically laughing at me for no apparent reason the other day. Things like this happen to me all the time. So honestly, at this point, I don't think Babylon Bee did anything wrong. To suspend their account was a childish move, a slap in the face, a fuck you by Twitter. Twitter basically said, we have the power, you will obey, you will abide by our falsehoods. You will not tell the truth and you will not be honest about how you feel or about what you think or we'll cancel your ass. We're not kidding and you're not allowed to make jokes either. And to make matters worse, Sanji Brown, Biden's Supreme Court nominee, can't even define the word woman, causing yet another uproar about these type of things. She said she's not a biologist, so she doesn't know how to. Even though we have an actual definition, an adult human female, you don't need to be a biologist to know that a woman is an adult human female. If you can't interpret the word woman, then you should automatically be disqualified. How will you be able to interpret the law? Roe v. Wade, what about women's bathrooms? I have nothing against Brown. She should have went with the basic Webster's definition of adult human female. Narcissistic behavior is a problem, and when you're a narcissist, you don't always recognize how you're affecting those around you or other groups you don't associate with. Part of the reason I'm being careful here, I think, or at least I'm trying to be careful here, everyone, I recognize a lot of narcissism in these situations. Maybe I'm overthinking here, but when Leah made the decision to transform, did Leah do so with the intention of competing as a woman, or was that an afterthought? Did being the best, getting attention, play a role? What ethics were at play? Was Leah being honest or egotistical in her decision-making process? I could be so far off base that I'm not even in the baseline anymore. I just ran out to left field trying to round second. Have you ever heard you can't bullshit a bullshitter? I first learned that. I used to work at a bar for my uncle throughout my 20s, and I was like 22, and there was nobody at the bar one day. It was like 1 p.m., and we used to buy this mustard hot sauce from this guy we called Diamond Don. And one day, Don and I were talking at the bar, and he goes, your uncle is full of shit. Excuse me. And I said, what are you talking about, man? And just so you know, I really look up to my uncle. We don't relate very well, but, I definitely watch him from afar and observe and try to take in, things that I can from him. He's very successful, and he's an incredibly intelligent, cool guy. And so I remember getting kind of like mad, like, screw you, man. My uncle's not full of shit. And then he starts telling me how he's full of shit, and how when you're full of shit, it's really easy to spot other people who are full of shit. So that's what I'm saying here. I'm calling myself a narcissist, and that's how I can tell that these are narcissistic behaviors. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Dark Triads in psychology. And why is this relevant? Because it's really hard to be honest with yourself. It's real hard sometimes. So I'm going to try to be a little vulnerable here. I'm at a place in my life that I can handle it. It's very possible that I possess the Dark Triad qualities. That's like admitting you're a shitty person. When I read and listen to philosophers and evolutionary psychologists, honestly, I check off a lot of these boxes. You can read any horoscope and feel like it's talking to you, even if it's not your sign. So I wonder if that's what's going on, and I'm just being maybe like really hard on myself when I go through this. But you know what? I'm 35 and I'm single still, and it's not really because I want to be, but I believe a lot of variables are at play. And if you understand the male and female selection process, and I'm not saying I understand it all that well, I'm speaking at a very novice level here, but that is further evidence that I possess these qualities. Women do not like me. And, the more you read and discover about people, you learn more about yourself, and at times come across some really hard truths. You have to take an effing punch in your gut, or just gloss over it and just accept that this is who you are. I haven't. I've been trying to work on these qualities and improve myself. It's hard. And you have to continue to be honest with yourself. So what are the Dark Triad, or what are these 3 qualities? In psychology, the Dark Triad comprises the personality traits of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. They are called dark because of their malevolent qualities. So Machiavellianism, they're like the sly, deceptive, manipulative type people. They're characterized by cynical, and they kind of have some twisted beliefs. They're very callous, and, they're often driven by money and power and status and the use of like cunning influence tactics to get there. So when I was young, I was a little shit, man, and I loved being sly and deceptive and manipulative. I love kind of getting people all worked up. So, I loved fucking with people, and thankfully I have no desire for power. And you could say I want status for doing a show like this, but really I just want to see if this is a viable way to make money. So I am this, but I don't know. It's hard to say, right? I do feel like I possess a lot of these qualities, and right now at this point in my life, I am really driven by money, and I am making decisions that help me make more money. So then we have psychopathy. It's a neuropsychotic disorder marked by deficient emotional responses, a lack of empathy, and poor behavioral controls, commonly resulting in persistent antisocial defiance and criminal behavior. So I check off all these boxes except for the criminal behavior. I'm not a criminal, and I'm not breaking the law. I have no intention to hurt anyone, harm anyone, break anything, destroy anything, steal anything. I really have no desire to do any of that. In fact, part of the reason I'm doing this show is because I'm just trying to encourage people to communicate and try to help bring us closer together. But, a lot of people do possess this. And when I was younger and I was going through a really, really hard time with my eyes, I definitely was lacking emotional responses. I felt numb. I couldn't feel anything. I was in so much physical pain all the time. And it was like the light, the wind, water, like everything just hurt. And I was too stupid to take the medicine like the doctor told me. Had I just taken the damn eye drops, I would have felt a lot better. But I didn't do it consistently. I was so young and dumb. And because of that, I didn't have any empathy. And I was a serious asshole as a kid. I didn't mean to be an asshole. I didn't know what I was doing. I was working through an eye disease and I didn't know how to handle myself through it. So yeah, I was a little shit when I was younger, but I was never a criminal. And then here I am as an adult. I have really struggled with relationships, like I mentioned before, with women and just friendships and all types of relationships. I am really antisocial as an adult. I am a homebody. I like to chill. I've tried hard not to be an asshole, but sometimes it just comes out when I'm just being myself and I'm in a zone. For example, I was at the grocery store last weekend and I was loading water into my cart. I looked up to see a woman smiling at me as she walked by, but she kept staring at me and kept smiling and even like cocked her head at me. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't, hey, you're a cute smile. Like I said, I'm a 5'7" bald dude. I'm like, thinking, okay, whatever, just let this go. I, pull in all this training and all this time I've spent on trying to not let shit bother me. And, I take a breath and, okay, I'm good. I talk about this on the show all the time, not getting upset. And, those moments of me not getting upset are not really worth discussing, right? So that's why I'm sharing this one with you, because I did feel something. So I'm at the self-checkout and she walks right up to me smiling, not saying a word, and there's open checkout stations everywhere. And I'm thinking, what the fuck, man? She's smiling ear to ear and just staring at me. So I asked, like, hey, do you know me? What's up? And she goes, I just wanted to say hi. And I'm thinking to myself again, well, what the fuck then? Just say hi. So I ended up just naturally responding, well, then just say hi next time. And she realized I was feeling some kind of way about her staring at me smiling, especially since this time she was less than 2 feet away from me. She went to the next checkout station right next to me, and on her way out, she came back up to me and said, have a nice day. And I said, you as well, having already realized I may have just been a huge asshole. What if, for some crazy reason, she was just trying to say hi to me? I can't ever say I've had a woman approach me like that, so it was honestly the last thing I was expecting, for her to just want to say hi to me and perhaps more. Trust me, I understand how hard that is. And maybe she just got really nervous and froze. I used to go up to women all the time and talk to them, and it never ended well for me. One time in college in the cafeteria, there was this girl I saw all the time, and I really wanted to talk to her. And every time I saw her, I swear I was running late to class or something. Story of my life, right? So I worked up the courage one day. I saw her sitting at a table in the cafeteria with all of her friends. I pull up a chair and I start talking to all of her friends. And like 10 minutes later, I turn to her and I'm like, hey, the real reason I came and sat over here is because I see you all the time. I think you're one of the most beautiful, best looking women I've ever seen. And I really want to see if you're interested in getting to know me. And it was like so awkward. Everyone just went silent, all eyes on me. And she gave me her number only to text me later that night to tell me that she wasn't really interested, but she appreciated the courage and respected what I had did. And that was probably the best response I'd ever got. I've had women say, dude, you're too short. Dude, I want a guy with hair. You don't have a degree. Those are 3 things that have been said to me multiple times in my life. I'm not even kidding. So once again, I understand being honest with yourself is really difficult, but it does make you stronger. And if you're wondering what these 3 traits are, so or another one of these traits is narcissism. Sorry, we just went over the previous 2 traits. I'm getting distracted by all these, by reminiscing by all these memories. So the third one of the triad traits is narcissism, a person who has an excessive interest in or an admiration of themselves. The one most common and known is narcissism for sure. And I'm assuming you're already familiar with this, and I'm assuming I have this to an extent. I mean, I like to work out. I like being in shape. I like having a 6-pack. I think I've had a 6-pack since I was like 22. And the truth is, I like being a man. It's something I meditate on. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel strong for some reason. I really do like who I am, even despite how other people treat me. It would have been nice to have kept my hair, but, I got over it. I just shaved my head, and now I don't have to think about it, for a week plus. And sometimes I forget to even look in the mirror. So maybe this woman was just laughing at me for missing a spot because I think I actually gave myself a haircut that day. I'll never know, but I should have been more nice and patient with her. I just assumed the worst. So either way, I've spent a lot of time working on turning off these traits myself. As you can see, I'm still working at it. But it is really hard to admit to yourself that you have these traits, and we all want to believe that we're good people, and it does not feel good to find out you're not a good person. So I'm trying to keep an open mind and see what I can learn. Like I said, I don't follow swimming, and if everyone else is cool with it, why should I care? Just don't tread on me kind of thing, right? But that's just it. Don't tread on me. Let me and other people do what we want, and don't force unpopular beliefs and ideals on us and everyone else. You're allowed to feel the way you want, but we all need to start recognizing how our behaviors, how our thoughts and our ideologies affect those around us. I know me being a Christian had a lot of it. Well, I shouldn't say Christian. People view me as a Christian because I believe in Christ. I personally don't identify with Christianity necessarily. I believe in Christ. I believe in God. I believe in a higher power, a higher consciousness. I don't just study Christianity, which is why I don't consider myself Christian. For example, I just read the words of Buddha last year, and this year I'm playing around a little bit with, and of course I'm drawing a blank right now. This always happens when I go off script. Jesus, why can't I think of the religion that I'm studying right now? Is that one I did, the Hinduism? There it is, Hinduism. So I have seen how me following Christ and my beliefs have impacted my friends around me. So I get it, and we all need to be more conscious about how we're affecting other people. And you may view women differently, or view trans people differently, or think that fairness is not as important as inclusion is. But you have to recognize that there are a lot of people out there who are just not seeing it that way. We need to talk. We need to talk about this. When I was a big brother for the United Way, and I would go to middle school to hang out with my little, they literally, no exaggeration, I'm dead serious, they had signs over every bathroom, every water fountain, all over the classroom and all over the hallways. They had signs everywhere with numbers that repeated, or that represented feelings. So if you felt disrespected, you would stand up in class and say, I feel like I'm number 4. Or they had constant reminders everywhere to respect the LGBTQ classmates. And I'm not kidding. Bathrooms, water fountains, these signs were all over. I don't believe it's like this at every school. This school is really diverse and really progressive. I want to believe schools and all of us are trying to accommodate the LGBTQ community. But what happens when you start lying? You can't build campaigns on lies. You can't attack legislation based on lies. And I have read that parental rights education bill twice now, and I just think that there's nothing there that about the word gay. I know I'm not a very smart person, but you know what? I can comprehend basic English. I know how to read, I know how to write, and I can interpret the word gay. It's not in there. And basically, with certain provisions of law for notifying students' parents of suspected information, requires such procedures to reinforce fundamental rights of parents to make decisions regarding upbringing and control of their children, prohibit school districts from adopting procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying parents about specified information, or that encourage students to withhold from parents such information. This bill also prohibits school districts personnel from discouraging or prohibiting parental notification and involvement in critical decisions affecting students' mental, emotional, or physical well-being. It also prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels, for example, under 3rd grade. It requires school districts to notify parents of healthcare services authorities, parents to bring action against school district to obtain declaratory judgment. It provides for additional award of injunctive relief, damages, and reasonable attorney fees and court costs to certain parents. This will be effective July 1st. Where in here does this impact the LGBTQ community? Where in here does this impact gay people or the word gay? I'm honestly not even sure I understand what they're trying to do with the word gay here. Google said we have 331 million people in America. That's a lot of people to try to convince, to be honest. I think Disney is an example of you give someone an inch and they're going to take a mile. The victim mentality is addicting, and it's bad for your mental health, in my opinion. I have been through it. Feeling bad for yourself is addicting. Trust me. When you repeat behaviors and have repeated thoughts constantly, you develop patterns of negative emotions, and they can be set off super quick by any external trigger that you develop to help justify the feeling we're having. And this becomes this emotional cycle that we just start repeating over and over. You get addicted to the energy it gives you, the power you feel when fighting back. Take it away, and what happens to the energy and power? It becomes replaced with depression and anxiety. Like in this case, the media is the trigger to these employees at Disney. Once everyone started shouting the word gay, regardless of the truth, what's in the bill, it created this powerful, overwhelming emotional response. If you haven't figured out what I'm talking about, I am talking about Disney walking out right now. Trust me, I know I've dealt with my own mental health issues, and I'm telling you, if you're not honest with what's really going on, if you just keep lying to yourself and the world around you, we're all going to suffer for it. It is, in my opinion, it is wrong for Disney employees to protest this, and I am someone who almost always takes the worker's side. If we're missing something, they better speak up. If this is just about the bill, then I think they're wrong. And I think Disney not taking further action is the right move based on what the bill says. I put this show together on 3/22, so it's possible something will have changed by the time I post this. But here's what I read on this particular day. Mayhem in the Magic Kingdom. Disney Don't Say Gay walkout undermines Bob Chapek's leadership crisis. So Disney's CEO, Bob, is facing a crisis of confidence in his leadership that is feeling an atypical level of turmoil at the top of the world's largest entertainment company. So through Bob's current employment contract, it is supposed to expire next February, but it's expected to be renewed and possibly soon, much before that, according to sources. And his tenure as CEO has been marked by an upheaval since he was named to the job back in February of 2020. Some other disruption has been far out of his control, such as a global pandemic, but, you know, he's had his own missteps that have been reflective of his own tendency to keep counsel with a small group of senior executives rather than bring in, you know, more people and take in more opinions and give more people decision-making power. So Bob may not be in trouble with Disney's board, but he's in the doghouse with the company's 200,000 plus employees, or according to this article, he's in the doghouse around the world. So Disney's bludgeoned response to the Florida's effort to pass the Don't Say Gay bill, which would severely restrict public school teachers' ability to address the LGBTQ related subjects in the classroom, has sparked a revolt amongst many employees. The anger over the company's failure to stand up with the latest politically motivated effort to demonize the LGBTQ community also brought to the surface resentment over the company's lack of non-heterosexual centered characters and storylines. So I would admit I'm not the biggest fan of Disney. However, they got their hands on Star Wars, man, and I'm stuck with them. Like I said earlier in this show, I'm still observing and learning from these situations, but so far I think Disney's CEO has done an okay job with this one instance, at least at this point as I write this on 3/22. So I'm still pissed about Gina Carano, by the way. She's an example of cancel culture going way too far, canceling someone for no reason, basically. I think it's good that employees get a chance to protest, but I also don't believe he should give in to lies. Even this article I found on Variety.com referred to the bill as the Don't Say Gay bill and said this impacts teachers' ability to teach kids about the LGBTQ community's rights and community, which is just a straight up lie, man. Go read the bill yourself if you just can't wrap your head around this. And then if you have read the bill, please try to just have a conversation with someone like me and explain to me why you're walking away with the interpretation that you can't say the word gay in school anymore and teach kids about LGBTQ rights. Because I'm telling you, here where I live, you can't avoid teaching kids that stuff. And just by the way, this article also said that the 200,000 employees were upset about this lie. In fact, the Daily Wire looked into this and they found that only about 100 people actually walked out and protested this. And based on the polls from the Daily Wire, over 60% of Disney employees actually support Florida's harm reduction bill. And over 60% of our country supports this. This is what I am saying. If you're too afraid to speak up, then at least keep polling. I personally don't know a single person who sees a problem with Florida's bill. Seriously, everyone I get a chance to talk to about it, I ask. The media is blowing this way out of proportion. Schools are way out of bounds right now. They're out of line. They're out of place. Their job is to educate and make one knowledgeable. Maybe teach some life lessons here and there when opportunities present themselves, but not to indoctrinate them into an ideology that most people are trying to make sense of themselves right now. I get teaching about ideologies, but that should come in college, not grade school. It's hard to push back when things don't even make sense. What are we even pushing back on when we can't wrap our heads around it? I've said before, a teacher telling a child that they should go through trans therapy even once is once way too many, and it's been reported that that's already happened in America. That will not build more inclusive communities. Tearing families apart will make things worse, and that's exactly what telling a children not to involve their own parents will do. These issues are between a child and a parent, and if the family wants to bring in the school, then the school can be involved. Otherwise, they're out of line. Honestly, based on my experience working at 3 different elementary schools and the 4th I went to as a big, teachers are not qualified at all to take on these issues. I also shared a story about an experience I had growing up in a previous episode. And, I talked about it at length, and it may have been that harm reduction program episode. I believe it was. You should go check it out. I told you how my teachers growing up didn't know what to do with me, so they would put me in the hallway with a toothbrush and a bucket of water and said to go wash the walls. I spent almost every recess in 5th and 6th grade washing walls with a toothbrush. I never got to go on field trips, and the couple times I did, I literally had a leash on me. So, anyways, why are these 100 people or so at Disney so mad? Well, they're part of a tribe with an echo chamber surrounded with really thick walls, and nothing but their tribe members' echoes reverberates through their chamber. You can scream as loud as you want and they won't hear you. We can literally shout, even though I don't think we should. They still won't hear you. Now, Walt Disney Company promises to create more LGBTQ content as activists attempt to stop the Florida passing a bill preventing gender identity instruction through 3rd grade. And you keep noticing how all these articles keep manipulating these words. Politics and the English language, man. How do those of us who are not part of the LGBTQ community let them know that we're with them, but at the same time, we're not down with the fake outrage, or perhaps it's real outrage, just misguided? I speculate mental health plays a role, but who am I? What do I know? Think for yourself. Jordan Peterson says to learn how to critically think, you have to write your thoughts down. How do we work together to prevent any one American community from feeling like they're being discriminated against? I don't have the answers. I'm just a random guy trying to get people to talk more, maybe even get you to start working out, eating better, and taking care of yourself. I believe in healthy living, mindfulness, and telling the truth. Telling the truth is hard because it starts with yourself. Anyway, let's be patient. Let's encourage conversation and even debate when necessary. I think there's more people out there like me on these issues. We need to keep talking. Don't yell at people. Don't call names. Don't be passive aggressive. Don't be condescending. When I read about Socrates, I often felt he was condescending. The way in which he challenged people was off-putting. So do it with kindness and be mindful of the appropriateness of the timing. Some good news. Denver created a program to dispatch mental health teams instead of police, and it's been really successful, and they're expanding. So after dispatching mental health teams instead of police officers to certain 911 emergency calls, the city of Denver is proclaiming their pilot program as a huge success. And they're now expanding it significantly. So since June 2020, the support team assisted response, or STAR, they call it the STAR team, has deployed medical and behavioral health clinicians to respond to a little over 2,200 low-risk calls at this point. Things like trespassing, intoxication, and other mental health crises involving people's privacy, homelessness, addiction-related issues, a lot of different things. So in all that time, the STAR teams have never called the police for backup once due to a safety issue, according to this January report. So in January, the city council unanimously allocated $1.4 million to contract for the STAR program's expansion, paying for 5 additional white vans and hiring 7 clinicians, 4 paramedics, and 2 emergency medical technicians. The Denver Post reports the STAR teams have driven hundreds of miles, assisted suicidal people, schizophrenics. They've also handed out water and socks and connected with people in shelters. They've provided food and resources. This is awesome. Every city, everywhere should be trying things like this. And, you know, I saw somebody setting up these fridges in poor communities, and once like a week, this guy would come around and stock it full of healthy food. Like, there's so many rich people out there. I live, you know, where I live, I am surrounded by wealth, and there's none of that going on where I live. All these rich people, man, what are you doing with all this time that you're buying with your maids and your lawn services and stuff? Seriously. Man, I think this is really cool. I personally don't believe police have enough training for every situation they encounter, and simply their presence, the presence of a police officer can seriously increase the tensions just by them being there. So this is great, and I hope it continues to work out. Woo! That was a show today. Sorry for stuttering and mumbling a lot. I'm trying to go off script a little bit more. I'm still practicing and getting better at doing this show. So thanks to everyone who's been following me along the way and supporting me. If you like these shows and you like all the random content I'm doing, please don't forget to subscribe. It seriously means a lot to me. And I'm really trying to lean on you for your support right now. So please like, please share, please subscribe on both Rumble and YouTube. It is much appreciated. Before I'm going to let you go today, let's just check out what my boy Marcus Aurelius has to say. As far as you can, get into the habit of asking yourself, in relation to any action taken by another, what is the point of reference here? But begin with yourself. Examine yourself first. Once again, Marcus says, as far as you can, get into the habit of asking yourself, in relation to any action taken by another, what is the point of reference here? But begin with yourself. Examine yourself first. JRooneyShow.